Yes, there you go. Thank you, Matt. That was a great comment. He was setting up digital audio workstations for schools in Sweden, and he was curious, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of the summary, okay? And he was curious what the biggest barrier would be for the students. Would it be hooking up the interface? Would it be dealing with the computer? Would it be the operating system? Would it be Mac versus PC? You know, exactly what was the issue going to be? And he found out that the gating element was patience. That it seems that we are raising generations of people who have had patients surgically removed at birth. And so, like, if they can't get immediate gratification, the idea of music being a discipline and requiring study, I mean, you would never think that someone would walk into, you know, Guitar Center, buy a Strat, get a Mel Bay book, and come back a week later saying, hey man, I don't sound like Jimi Hendrix, this guitar sucks, you know?
I kind of did that.
But, oh, and by the way, I should also mention, since I didn't say who I am, in case you don't know, I'm Craig Anderton, and I'm with Gibson, and so I'm involved with guitars and software and speakers and all that stuff, so I'm particularly interested in this angle of things because, in full disclosure, Cakewalk is a Gibson brand. Avid isn't yet, but we're working on it. No, I'm just kidding. But Avid obviously is the is a market leader on 2 different platforms. So I thought that I wanted to get that perspective in as well. But here's the thing: what can we do as companies, as an industry, with our software, so that we can remove these barriers to patience? And is that something we should even do? Can we, or should we just like face the fact that, look, music is a discipline, there'll always be a limited number of people who want to do with it? Or can we try to extend it further? Are there ways we can do that? I'd like to hear some thoughts about that. And let's start with you, Steve. Because you don't have a dog in this fight, and you do have a dog in every fight.
Let me start by asking a question. What was it precisely the students got impatient with? The setup process of the DAW, or having to build tracks, or having to learn the workflow of a particular program?
Or we can ask the authority himself.
Everything.
Everything.
Everything, setting up the equipment, knowing how to analyze a piece of music, having to learn what is a chord, how do I play a bass, how do I set up a drum track. The only thing that they didn't have a problem with was dragging and dropping loops.
Well, on the software side, I would think that software implementing a lot of wizards, sort of having a beginner mode. GarageBand, I think, became so successful for a time because it precisely did this. You say, I want to make a guitar track, and there it is, in the most direct way possible. So wizards that provide a bit of a gateway drug or instant gratification factor for people, where they feel like they got immediate results, and the software invites them in. I don't know, I'm speaking in very general terms here, but as opposed to feeling like you have to ascend a learning curve to make the tool do anything for you.
Well, that's a good general point. So let's get a little more specific. And Noel, this is a question for you, because you came up with the idea of lenses, what you call lenses, for sonar, which strike me as sort of almost like a video game analogy, where you have level 1, and you have a certain number of things you can deal with, and you can progress to level 2 and level 3 and so on. Was that part of the motivation of why you did that?
Yeah, so...
Microphone? He plays guitar. It's okay.
So the thing with software is, these days, like, a DAW has become like this giant. It's an evolution of features which has gone through decades of work, you know. So take the analogy of a musician. It's like you play a musical instrument, right? So what do? If you play the piano, you walk to the piano and you play a key and you play. You don't have to go through a menu to say, hey, I'm playing a piano, this is what I do, and yet it's taken us 20 years, and we've come to a point where music software is so complicated that it's become daunting for somebody who's just a musician to get into using these things. So primarily because there's such a huge learning curve, and you're exposed to so many options and so many things that you can do that you just have mental paralysis. So we kind of took our approach, which is like a modern, they call it UX, It's basically you want to filter out all the nonsense which you're not thinking about when you're trying to make music or you're trying to do a specific task. Let's say all you wanted to do was open your software and record a track. Do you need to see a million options about like SMPTE and transport and a whole bunch of things? You don't need all that information in front of you. So we built this concept of a lens, which is like, just like you deal with a camera, it's like you put on a lens and you can zoom in, you can get a close shot, you can get a long shot. So the lens will basically filter out all the information that you're not interested in looking at by just performing one action, and then you can just use the software in a very simple way. Does that kind of...
Yeah, no, I think that's, and what you're hitting at the same thing that Steve is, which is there needs to be steps, graduated steps. And actually, Tony, that brings up something, when I was doing some consulting to Abbott and I was working with the lesser editions in Pro Tools, one of the things I noticed was the content that's included with the Avid package is really pretty good. It's something where you talk about people can drag and drop loops, and although sometimes that's thought of derisively as someone who can't make music, if you have to get a drop off to FedEx by 5 o'clock for a soundtrack, those loops can come in really handy, and I've used them from time to time myself. And I've also noticed you did some things like Pro Tools Free over the years, and you have the LE versions. And you see that as something that you're going to be expanding into, trying to. I mean, Pro Tools has the reputation as being like the professional DAW that people use, but do you have intentions to get into other places?
Yeah, I think you. It wasn't me.
Software guys, man.
It wasn't me. It was him. I think so short answer is yes, we'll absolutely keep making Pro Tools and Pro Tools First, the free editions, more accessible. I think you have to, you can't fight that tide. The expectation is such, there's the stereotype of the millennials like you were describing, they've got no patience. That is certainly not going to change a generation. So you have to respond to that. Is there a dark side to that where it's like you could become a DJ just by hitting a button? And yeah, kind of, but I think the human spirit has a creative drive in it, and to the extent that simplicity does inspire you, it's a good thing. And I think we're always going to want to do something a little bit different. No one wants to sound like somebody else. And even though if you buy whatever, an iPad or even an iPhone, you get GarageBand on it or something, and you got all these loops, you can kind of sound, you think you sound unique.
That's what I call the look and feel of music.
Yeah, but you're still going to, look, there's going to be a certain amount of people that are going to use that for fun, and it's good for them, it's great, and people are happier because of that. But those people that want to take it further, they're going to always want tools to take it further. So I think, you're right, Pro Tools has a little bit of a stereotype of being, really, really deep, how do you maybe daunting to some people. So we have taken some steps, like with Pro Tools First, and there were some essential editions before that kind of had some of the functionality stripped away. I think the idea of a lens is really, really unique and really cool. But yeah, I don't think we can fight the tide. I think you have to give people accessibility and an easy way to move up, and that's what we try to do with Pro Tools. We've got free all the way up to something that Jack uses in his studio, something really full-fledged, something you'd find at Skywalker Sound or some of the biggest facilities. So I think that's what we have to continue doing.
Well, speaking of Jack, I have a question for you too, which is, some people consider that option overload is a problem in this industry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, it's a slapback. Well, we'll tune out the delay. No, I was asking, a lot of people consider option overload to be an issue in this industry. Like just looking at plugins, for example. I mean, I use Waves plugins. I use Universal Audio stuff, and between that and what comes with Sonar, I really don't feel a need to investigate much further. I mean, there's some great instruments out there and all that. But I'm just wondering, since you are so familiar with plugins, and it's something that, do you ever find it to just be, do you reach a point where you go, I have enough, I've learned what I have, or do you constantly look for more things? I mean, how do you feel about having all these options available?
For me, probably the most exciting thing in life is discovery. I have close to, I think I'm around $1 million in equipment, outboard equipment, different kinds of pieces of gear. And I look at it sort of like the way musicians look at it, where maybe you go through your Stratocaster phase, and for whatever reason, one day, maybe the string breaks and you grab the Les Paul and you're like, well, I forgot about my Gibson. Now I'm off on the Gibson for a minute. And it's the same thing with the equipment, where sometimes you put it up and you go in a different direction and it actually inspires you. So the relationship between you and that is very key in art, in my opinion. So I don't think you can ever have enough. I think that when you get to that point, you're maybe done, kind of over. When you lose that enthusiasm, I think I've said more than once, my fear would be to wake up and decide that I want to go to the beach. I don't really want to go today. I was like, uh-oh. Because what we do is the other woman, right? She's the other woman. And since I don't want to be with her, something's not right. That's how I see it. There's another thing that I think we should maybe consider up here. I'm not sure, I can see this through different lenses. I can put a consumer lens on and talk about it from a consumer perspective of why I think those people think the way they think that you were speaking about earlier. And at the same time, because of the way I think, when you mentioned all the plugins, if you harken back to an earlier age of this business, you didn't have the ability to go on YouTube. There was no Pensado's Place, there was no Mix with the Masters, there was no all these different interviews, right, where you can watch these guys that you think maybe make good records that you might like, right? And they tell you, like, well, here's a session. You look at the session, I put 1176 here, I did this, I did this, I did that. Here's the result, this is why I did it. You're like, oh, okay, now I know what that does. Next time I see the drop-down menu and I see the 1176, I don't panic. Is it that one, or is it, the DigiDesign compressor, or which one is it? I kind of know what they do. I think we need to keep that in consideration. At least for me growing up, I didn't have that. Now I had mentors that taught me, the Glenn Johns of the world and the Bill Schnees and, really very successful guys who actually created the blueprints, right? But now the blueprints are on YouTube. And I think that that's how we should maybe talk about it a little bit. Like, hey, you can go on, you can really, you don't need to be afraid. And by the way, so what if you do? Still a recall. You come back the next day like, that sucks and you suck. Okay, let's try it again. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like you get to crash and burn. At the gig, there's no crash and burning. When you burn at the gig, it's like, you suck. But in a record studio, you're kind of by yourself. And I'll say one last thing, and it's also about being very strong and believing in who you are. This is very, very important. You should leave here today with like, okay, so America says Oz never gave the Tin Man anything he didn't already have. That's right. It's all within you. You can do it. And never listen to like, well, how it used to be, we would do this and we would do that. And you know what, so what? Let me tell you what art is. The definition of art is ever changing. It's gonna change. That's okay, you want it to. It's fun. Right? Now what is it gonna do? Now what can I do? Virtual reality, like the notion of thinking that you sit inside control rooms and artists say, what I was trying to say with the song was, I wanted to feel like I'm on a mountaintop. And you're like, okay, reverb, delay, depth, maybe some kind of imaging. These are the things that go through your mind. And in your mind, you're making a 3D rendering of what they want in that song. And soon, with virtual reality, we're gonna be like, okay, we can go there, right? Think about that. Think about what that's gonna do for us for creating. Forget plugins. I mean, that's like, whoa. Imagine that, we now really actually, forget 5.1, 7.1, like whatever, these are toys. Filled like quad. It's gonna be like, whoa. That's exciting to me. That's what I see. That's what makes me want to go every day to the studio.
It's interesting you mentioned virtual reality because when I posted this question in my forum on Army Central, because I always like to get ideas before doing a workshop like this, most of the people said that they saw some kind of future with VR and recording. And we don't have much time, but we'll get back to that. I think one question that we really need to address